On today's episode, I'm here with Jim, and we briefly spoke on the last video with Jeanette about having Jim on to talk about seller paid down financing. And the reason why I'm bringing it up today is because just recently I had something that would work for seller paid down financing, and it was with a $300,000 purchase price. And I figured, what better example to have Jim talk about a purchase price of $300,000 and what can happen if the seller does agree to seller paid down financing.
Excellent. Thanks, Matt. You know, this program is interesting because it not only helps buyers, it helps the real estate agents, it helps the sellers. It's a win-win for everybody in this program. It's called the Seller Paid Buy Down Program. So as an example, here's what we do. We'd have a $300,000 purchase price. For this scenario, we're assuming a 20% down. But you can do this with first-time home buyer programs too, with as little as 3% down. So if you have a $300,000 purchase price and 20% down, you have a loan amount of $240,000. Today's interest rates on that are about 4.875 for a 30-year fixed. So the monthly payment for the buyer in this scenario would be $1,270 a month. That's your principal and interest payment. Now in this scenario, what Matt told me is the buyer and the seller were discussing how they can get a better deal, right? The seller didn't want to lower their price, but the buyer wanted to get a lower price. So look, we assumed in this situation that the buyer was going to ask for a 5% price reduction from the seller. That would bring the price of the house from $300,000 down to $285,000. At $285,000, 20% down, the new loan amount is now $228,000. The fact is the interest rate in that small difference stays the same. So for a 30-year fixed, the principal and interest payment is going to be $1,207 on this loan amount versus $1,270 on this loan amount, right? So the buyer saves $63 a month on their principal and interest payment every month. But guess what? The seller just gave up $15,000 to make that deal. So the seller, although they sold the house, they lost $15,000 in their original proposal. So here's why this program makes some magic with the scenario. So the third option here is for, instead of reducing the price by 5%, we keep the price the same, $300,000, right? 20% down, loan amount $240,000. So now we're talking about the same scenario as the seller originally looked at. But now we ask the seller for a 3% concession. A 3% concession equates to $9,000. So $9,000 versus $15,000, okay? Now, the buyer takes that $9,000 and buys down their interest rate to 3.99 for the life of the loan. They now, on a 30-year fixed, are only paying $1,144. It's $126 a month savings for the buyer. And guess what? We saved the seller $6,000. Yes, they still had to lower their net profit, but we cut it almost in half. And now you look, the buyer is paying $126 less a month. And here's the big kicker. If this goes through, the buyer saves $13,000 in the first 10 years on interest payments. They save $31,000 on interest payments in the first 15 years. And if they stay in the house for 30 years, they save $45,000 in interest payments. This is a win-win for the seller, for the buyer, the agents involved. It's a great program.
It's a huge, like I told Jim, it's best displayed on a whiteboard, because if you can really grasp that if you lower the price by $15,000, you're saving $63. But if you keep it the same and the seller pays down the 3%, you're doubling the amount that you're saving on your monthly payment, as well as if you stay in the house for 30 years, you're going to save about $45,000 on the loan. And these, if you display it out, I mean, everyone's wondering about interest rates all the time, and they always want to get the cheapest interest rate. And to see 3.99, that would blow some people's minds, to be able to get a 3.99% interest rate.
These interest rates are interest rates of a year or two ago. But because of this program, we can go back and get them, make the seller happy, make the buyer happy, and get the deal done.
And I think it's definitely a win-win for both sides. So if you guys have any questions about this type of program, how it might apply to a purchase that you're looking at or a home, feel free to reach out to myself or Jim. We'll have our contact info below. And I thank you guys for watching. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.